I've been a rideshare driver for a while now, and I've seen all kinds of passengers, drunks, cheaters, even a guy who cried the entire ride. But nothing compares to what happened that night. It was just past 2:30 a.m. when I got a request near a closed gas station. The place was dead, lights off, no workers, just one man standing alone under a flickering street lamp. He wasn't moving, just waiting. As soon as I pulled up, he lunged into the back seat. No hello, no small talk, just the sound of his ragged breathing behind me. "Where to?" I asked, forcing a casual tone. For a few seconds, silence. Then, in a low, flat voice, he muttered an address across town. 30 minutes away. I started driving. That's when I felt it, his eyes drilling into me through the rearview mirror, unblinking, watching every move I made. After a few blocks, he finally spoke. "You ever think about how much trust people put in strangers?" I stiffened. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward slightly. I could smell him now, a mix of sweat and something metallic. "You're driving. I'm back here. If I wanted to, I could, He mimed something with his hands, a swift motion across his throat. A chill ran down my spine. I forced a laugh. "Yeah, crazy world, huh?" But inside I was screaming. His breathing got heavier. I could see him moving, hands twitching, fingers gripping something inside his pocket, something sharp. My mind raced. "Stay calm, keep driving, don't show fear." Then a sudden change in his tone, low, whispery, "Pull over." My stomach dropped. The street was dark, empty, no witnesses, no cameras. I was alone with him. I glanced at my phone. No signal. "I can't stop here," I lied, trying to sound normal. "Gotta follow the app's route." He exhaled sharply, irritated. Then he reached into his jacket. My hands gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I had to think fast. Up ahead, a red light, and to the right, a police cruiser parked near a diner. I slammed the brakes harder than I needed to. The sudden jolt threw him forward, catching him off guard. That's when I threw the car into park, unlocked the doors, and bolted out. "Help! He has a weapon!" I screamed, waving my arms. The officer's head snapped up. "The passenger?" He panicked. He flung the door open and took off down the street, disappearing into the night. The cops didn't catch him. But the next morning, a news alert hit my phone. Breaking. Rideshare driver found dead in abandoned lot. Suspect still at large. My blood ran cold. The location? The exact address my passenger had given me. If I hadn't stopped when I did, I never would have made it. Some people say you should trust your gut. I say never trust the man behind you. I moved to the cabin to escape. No city noise, no traffic, just me, the trees, and the endless stretch of Oregon wilderness. Perfect, or so I thought. I had rented the place for 6 months. The owner, a guy named Carl, barely gave me any details. When I signed the lease, just a warning. It gets real quiet up there. People don't usually last long. I didn't care. That was the whole point. The nearest town was 40 minutes away, and the only neighbor I had was an older woman named Michelle. I met her on my second day. She was standing at the edge of my property watching me. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't waving, just standing there, still as a statue, wrapped in a heavy coat. I hesitated before calling out, "Hey there." She tilted her head slightly. Then, in a low, warning voice, she said, "Always keep your lanterns full. Your windows shut tight and your wits sharper than your axe." And just like that, she turned and walked back into the woods. I stood there uneasy. I had expected the usual small-town friendliness, not cryptic advice from a stranger, but I shrugged it off. Maybe she was just weird. Then the night started, getting strange. At first it was small things, a weird feeling like I was being watched, the sensation of movement in the trees. Then one night as I was locking up, I heard it, crisp, deliberate footsteps outside. I grabbed my flashlight and swung it toward the noise. The beam cut through the trees, revealing nothing. The next morning, I found something that made my skin crawl. Near my woodpile in the fresh snow, a single set of footprints. They circled the cabin. No start, no end, just an endless loop of tracks like someone had been walking all night long. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe Michelle had come by, but why would she just walk in circles? By the fourth night, the feeling of being watched became unbearable. The trees looked too still. The silence felt too heavy. Then, during a thunderstorm, Michelle showed up again. At my door, her coat was soaked through. Her hair clung to her face, eyes wide, darting back and forth. She didn't step inside. "There's someone near your woodpile," she whispered. "He's watching." A slow chill crept up my spine. "Who?" She just shook her head and backed away. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped onto the porch. Wind howled. Rain hammered the trees. I swept the light over the woodpile. Empty. Turned back to ask Michelle more questions, but she was gone. I barely slept that night. Every gust of wind, every creak of the cabin made my skin prickle. My axe stayed next to my bed. Then around 3 a.m. I woke up, not because of a sound, but because of the silence. The storm had stopped, completely. No wind, no rain, not even crickets. And then bang, bang, bang. Someone was pounding on my door. I shot up in bed, my breath caught in my throat. Bang, bang, bang. I grabbed my axe, creeping toward the door. My heart was hammering. My pulse roared in my ears. Then the handle turned. I lunged forward, slamming my weight against the door. The person outside let out a sharp grunt. Then, running, I stood there, frozen, until I could hear nothing but my own ragged breathing. The next morning, I found something worse than footprints. Near the back window, pressed into the glass, a handprint, smudged, greasy. From the inside, I left that same day. Didn't pack, didn't call Carl. Just got in my truck and drove. But before I reached the main road, something made me stop. Michelle's cabin. I had never actually seen it. But now that I was leaving, I figured I'd at least say thanks. I pulled up to the address and felt my stomach drop. The place was completely abandoned, rotting. The windows were boarded shut, the porch sagging from decay. I got out and walked. Up to the front, a rusted mailbox still had a name on it, Michelle. Then my phone buzzed, a message from Carl. Forgot to mention, don't listen to anyone up there. People say they see things, but that place has been empty for years. I dropped my phone. My head snapped toward the tree line. There, standing just beyond the shadows, watching. I ran. I haven't been back since, but sometimes, late at night, when the wind dies down and the world goes quiet, I still hear it. Bang, bang, bang. Christmas Eve has always been one of my favorite nights of the year. Cold air, warm lights, the feeling that the world slows down for just a moment. But now, whenever this night comes around, I get a sinking feeling in my stomach because when Christmas Eve, I learned that some things, some people are watching, waiting, and they know exactly where you are. It started as a peaceful drive. My girlfriend Catherine and I were heading to her parents' house, a cozy cabin about 2 hours outside the city. We had left late, around 11 p.m., after I finished work. Snow was falling lightly, and the roads were mostly empty. Just us, the long highway, and the soft glow of the car's dashboard. Then my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Catherine looked at me. "Who's calling this late?" I shrugged. "Spam, probably." I let it go to voicemail, but a minute later, it rang again. Same number. This time, something in my gut told me to pick up. "Hello?" For a moment, there was only silence. Then, breathing, not normal breathing. Slow, ragged, too close to the receiver. Then a whisper, "Turn off your headlights." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. My grip on the wheel tightened. "What?" I said, trying to sound calm. The call cut off. I swallowed hard. Catherine noticed my expression. "What did they say?" I forced a laugh. "Some weirdo." I didn't tell her what the voice had said. A few minutes passed. The road stretched on, dark and endless. No other cars, no signs of life. Then my phone rang again. Catherine tensed. "Okay, that's weird," I answered, putting it on speaker this time. Silence, then the voice. "You shouldn't be out here." The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I tried to stay calm. "Who is this?" "No," answer. Just that same ragged breathing. Then they spoke again. "I don't need you, David. I need Catherine." Catherine gasped and grabbed my arm. I felt my blood turn ice cold. I glanced at her. "Do you know this guy?" She shook her head, eyes wide with fear. "No, I don't know who that is." The call ended. My hands were sweating. I tried to focus on the road, but my pulse was hammering. And then the phone rang again. I didn't answer right away. I just let it ring, my breath coming in short, shaky bursts. Catherine's voice was barely above a whisper. "What if they're watching us?" I turned, scanning the trees lining the road. Nothing. Finally, I answered. The voice on the other end chuckled. "You think I don't know where you're going?" I slammed the brakes. The car skidded slightly, tires crunching on the icy road. Catherine gripped the dashboard. "David!" My hands were shaking now. "Who the hell are you?" But this time the voice didn't whisper. It laughed. A slow, deliberate laugh that made my skin crawl. Then it said, "You're not listening, David. I told you to turn off your headlights." And then our headlights shut off completely. Darkness swallowed the car, the road, the trees, everything. The engine was still running, but the lights dead. Catherine screamed. I hit the high beam switch. Nothing. I flicked the dashboard lights. Dead. My phone rang. I answered without thinking, panic clawing at my throat. "Now, do you understand?" I slammed my foot on the gas. The car roared forward, cutting through the pitch-black void. The headlights flickered back on, just for a second. That's when we saw it, a figure standing in the middle of the road. Tall, motionless, staring at us. I yanked the wheel. The car skidded, tires barely gripping the ice. We missed him by inches, and then he was gone. Catherine was sobbing. My hands were locked on the wheel, white-knuckled. We sped through the night, not stopping until we reached her parents' house an hour away. We ran inside, locked every door, closed every curtain, checked my phone. No missed calls, no call history, as if they never happened. We called the police, they checked the number, it didn't exist. And the strangest part, we had never posted our Christmas plans online. No one knew we'd be on that road, no one, except whoever called us, and to this day, I don't know what they wanted or if they're still waiting somewhere, watching. Road trips always seemed like a fun idea, until that night. I was driving cross-country for work, trying to make good time. But after nearly 10 hours on the road, my eyes were heavy, and I knew I needed to stop. I pulled into a small roadside motel, the kind with flickering neon signs and a nearly empty parking lot. The front desk clerk barely looked up as he handed me the key. Room 109. I just wanted to sleep. The room was nothing special. Stiff bed, old TV, dim lamp in the corner. I barely glanced around before tossing my bag on the chair and collapsing onto the mattress. But just as I started to doze off, the room phone rang. I jerked awake. It was past midnight. Who would be calling me here? I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" For a few seconds there was only breathing. Then, in a low, scratchy whisper, I heard, "You left your door unlocked." My blood ran cold. I leapt. Out of bed, heart pounding. The door, it was locked, deadbolt secure. I swallowed hard. "Who is this?" Click. The call ended. I stood there, heart hammering against my ribs. Maybe it was a prank. The front desk messing with me? I shook it off and went to the bathroom to splash water on my face. When I came back, my stomach dropped. The closet door was open. I was sure it had been closed before. I stared at it, feeling a weight settle in my chest. The inside was dark, too dark, like the shadows weren't just from bad lighting. Slowly, I approached, reached out, pulled it shut. Then, the phone rang again. I jumped, spinning toward the bed. My breath caught in my throat. The closet door was open again, wide open. I grabbed the phone with a shaking hand. "Who is this?" Silence. Then, a whisper. "You let me out." The line went dead. I grabbed my bag and bolted out of the room. The guy at the front desk looked surprised as I threw the key at him and muttered something about an emergency. As I ran to my car, I glanced back at room 109. The curtain in the window shifted, like someone was watching me leave. I don't know what was in that room. I don't know how long it had been waiting, but I know this. I was never alone in there, and now, whenever I check into a motel, the first thing I do is check the closet, just in case.